Hello there. Welcome to this video where you get to learn more on how you can approach various GMAT questions in the GMAT exam. And in these videos, we do select questions from various topics and we walk through them together with you to show you how you can approach the questions using various strategies as you learn better approaches and also probably gain a better understanding on how you can do so. My name is Joshua Obuya, trainer and a mentor with the Kenya Elite program under the GMAT training section. Welcome aboard and hope you will learn more. Thank you. Right, to begin this session, let's look at how to go about GMAT questions on overlapping sets. This topic is under the algebra, but it's more or less unique and can be categorized on its own just to look to see how questions which tend to have overlapping sets, how are they best approached in the GMAT exam. I will look at 3 questions and hopefully that you have your concepts ready with you and you know them in your head. And as we approach the questions, we'll see which will be the best ways to tackle different kinds of questions. First and foremost, in any data sufficiency method or question rather to tackle, you need to be very conversant with the concepts. Once you know the concepts, you need to know what constitutes sufficiency. Once you know that, then you can go ahead and assess each statement. See if at all they meet the criteria which you had put in place or which needs to be put in place. Thereafter, you need to select the answer choices. And these types of questions being unique, more or less to the GMAT exam, the answer choices also tend to be a bit unique also, and you need to know how to select them. So if you don't know how to select the questions, or the correct answer to the questions, you can go back and just watch one of the previous videos and see how we go about selecting them. So without much further ado, we'll go ahead to look at the first question for the day. The first category we look at questions which are in the sub 600 level difficulty. These are questions which many students don't have a problem getting a correct answer to them. So, and you find that for this type of questions, you can easily get the answer by just applying the methodology and concepts. That is, know what the concept is, define what would be required to determine sufficiency. Once you have that, and then you can go ahead and assess the statements to see which one fits into that correct answer criteria in the data sufficiency methodology. So let's dive in. At a certain carnival with 800 patrons, 300 of the female patrons like clowns, and 450 of the patrons are male. What is the total number of patrons who like clowns? So before we go to the statements, we'd like to know what information do we get from this from this question step. What information do we get? And just to get away as more space, let's now start from here. All the number of patrons we have are 800. So total 800. Then we have like clowns who are female, 300 like clowns, females like clowns. And there are 450 of the patrons who are male. So of all these 800, the male are how many? Male are 450. If 450 are male, how many will be the female? Female will be 850 divided by 450 will get 350 females. So of this number, we've been asked to find how many like clowns. So here's where now we've been told that there are about 300 women of this. So about 50 of them don't like clowns or something like that, because 300, they like clowns. That's what we've been told. So that will give us 50 of those who don't like. But as it is, it's a bit difficult to get to know exactly how do you arrange them. And normally the matrix is the most recommended method to use to be able to approach such kind of overlapping sets questions. For the matrix, to set it up, you need to find more or less like categories of the groups which actually tend to coincide and can have values assigned to them. For instance, we have the male patrons and the female patrons in this case. Then we have those who like clowns, those who don't have like clowns. So we'll put the male patron, the male and female patrons on one side, like on the columns. So you can call the male patrons. Then you can have the female patrons on the columns. Along the rows, you can now have those who like clowns, then those who don't like clowns, so the DLC, let's call it so, don't like clowns just for illustration purposes. Then now from here, now we'll have along the column, we'll have all the number of those who are male patrons, female patrons, and at this cell right here is total number of patrons that we have, which is 800. So male patrons, all of them, those who like and don't like clowns, we have 450. Then for the female patrons, those who like and don't like clowns, we have them as 350. So from this information given, also you know that those who don't like clowns, actually, those who, what's the statement again? 300 of the female patrons like clowns. So those who like clowns, the females are 300. And the females who don't like clowns are now 50. So what will be being asked? What is the total number of patrons who like clowns? So like clowns, the whole of this row. That is what we're being asked, the whole of that row. Then don't like clowns is the whole of that row. Then the columns, male patrons who like clowns and don't like clowns, and female patrons who like clowns and don't like clowns. So let's call this one. We need to find out the number of clowns. So let's call this one M. This one can now be X. So what you know is that if you're able to find out what M is, we can find what X is. Or if you can find all those who don't like clowns, and that is now, let's say, Y, then you can find what X is. So once you have this, then actually you can now determine sufficiency. Any statement which lets us know how we can arrive at M, X, or through Y or through M. So you can actually have those actually can let us know Y to help us get to X, or help us get actually help us get M to help us get to X as well. So that's what we need to find out. So now we can go ahead and assess our statements and look for which statement gives us information on the number of male patrons who like clowns, or male patrons who don't like clowns, or all the patrons who don't like clowns altogether. That's what we'll be looking at. So let's see. The first statement says that at least 450 of the males at the carnival do not like clowns. At least 450, which means it can be 450, 451, etc. So on and so forth. That is what we're being told as student one. So does this help us get how many don't like clowns or how many males like clowns? If we have 450, at least 450 males at the carnival don't like clowns, that means this one can be 450, 51, but the total number of them cannot exceed 450. That means if this is 450, let me just change the color, help us highlight. If actually this is 450, then that means that this one is 0. If this one is 0, then X will be equal to 300. That means this one alone is sufficient. This one alone is sufficient. So if that alone is sufficient, then that means from our answer selections to, criteria, that means you have now A, that is A sufficient, that is first A, B, C, and D, and E. So if the first one is actually sufficient, the first one is sufficient, that means you knock out B, C, and E. That is the answer choice which you knock out. So now we'll have to either answer choice A or D. So we go ahead and select and actually assess statement number 2 to see if it's sufficient. If it is sufficient, then the answer choice will be D, which means both statements alone are sufficient. If it is actually, if the second statement is not sufficient, then that means that we'll remain with A, which says that statement 1 alone is sufficient, or the second statement is not sufficient. So let's see. 50 females at the carnival do not like clowns. So what are they saying? This statement says that 50 females at the carnival do not like clowns. So which is basically just this cell here they're talking about. And if you look at it closely, it's just reiterating what you had in the main question stem. So if they tell us that doesn't tell us how many of the males we do have who don't like clowns or who like clowns, or how many of the patrons who don't like clowns altogether. So it's not giving us information on Y or M. So for that reason, then it's actually not sufficient. So second statement is not sufficient. And therefore, if it's sufficient, cross out answer choice D, and the answer remains to be A, which is statement 1 alone is sufficient, but 2 alone is not sufficient. That is what the answer is. So you see that in this question, if you are able to follow to actually just follow the data sufficiency methodology to answer questions, you'll be able to get your answer.
You're watching Success with Bob Mwiti Show, presented to you by Upstack America. Upstack America is a consulting company that helps immigrants find amazing higher education and job opportunities in the tech industry in the United States. You can find our programs by going to www.upstackamerica.com. Upstack America, we wake you up to the unlimited potential.
The next question to look at is, what percentage of the drama club members enrolled at a certain school are female students? What percentage are? Now, for overlapping sets, we need to look at percentages and fractions. Be very careful with them because they can be very tricky. There's normally a challenge with them that we'll get to see in a while, and let's just attempt this and see. So what percentage of the drama club members enrolled at a certain school are female students? So we don't know anything else about. So just to know is have, let's get some space. So you have, since we have them either male or female, because we ask about the female ones, we have male students, then female students. Then we have those who are members of drama club, members, then non-members. So that's what you have in the matrix. So you have male and female, members, non-members. So that's something that you do have. And the female, there we go. So from here now, I'd like to see, being asked for the percentage of lab members enrolled at a certain school that are female. So that means members of female, so F, female members, divided by male plus female members. So that is male members of something. Yeah, let me just try and get it to a better. We have male members and then we have the female members. So let's see. So male, then members. Then you have female members. That's what I'm trying to put out here. So you have female members divided by male members plus female members. That's how we'll get the proportion. So we have this, you can call this F, you could call it M. Then this now can be M plus F. So we need to find proportions of this. That's what we need to find in this question. So any statement which will help us get to address this first row in its entirety, that will help us be able to determine sufficiency. At the same time, it needs to give us specific proportions which won't be changing. Because this actually, if you get proportions which change in which actually can take multiple values, then that actually doesn't mean that won't be sufficient. But if it is giving you a consistent value, the proportion, then that will be sufficient. So let's look at the first statement. Of the female students enrolled at the school, 40% of the members are drama club. So we have females. So females, we can call them, all the females can be F. So this F, 40% of them are in drama club. So that means 0.4 F. Yeah. So 0.4 F in drama club. And then how many males are there? We don't know. So the males that you do have here are not known. So we don't know how many are males. We don't know how many are males plus females. So this is not sufficient as it is. So you have 0.4 F, so this is 0.6 F. If this is actually F for females, all the females in the school that we have. So let's now look at the second statement. Of the male students enrolled at the school, 25% of the members are drama club members. So we have males. So 0.25 are drama club members. So this 0.75 members are not members of the drama club. So here now we do not also know, it's just like the first statement, just giving us the same information, therefore not sufficient too, because it's just a mirror image of what the first statement is, but now that's different. So we have now 0. So now actually do have 0.25 m. So now that you do have these ones, how about if we actually go ahead and, because we look at the approach to methodology, A, B, C, D, and E. If actually the first statement isn't sufficient, then you cross it off, and only do also cross off D, because that means that statement 1 is sufficient. So we'll have to B, C, and E. If you assess the second statement and find that it's not sufficient, we cross off B, which means that the second statement alone is sufficient, but the first one is not. Then now you're left with either C or E. So for C, that's the next thing you assess, combining those two statements together. If you combine them together, what do you get? So you have 0.25 plus 0.4 F is equal to what? Question mark. You can't really tell what it is. We don't know what this proportion is. And therefore, we do not know this last part. If we can't know what this other last part is, we can't really tell what value of what the value of F or M is, because we don't know what the number of students are. If we knew what the number of students are, then it would have gone ahead. So this is very difficult, because let's say the students are 10, M is 10, and F is 50, and proportions change. You'll keep getting different answers. For that reason, C is not sufficient. If you try out multiple variations, it will give you different percentages. This leaves us that answer to be E, which means that statements 1 and 2 together are not sufficient. So we need more information. So this is the answer to the question. And now let's look at the last question, or the third or the last question. Of the 20 people who each purchased 2 tickets to a concert, some used both tickets, some used only 1 ticket, and some used neither ticket. What percent of the tickets that were purchased by the 20 people were used by those people? So this is actually a 600 level difficulty, but I will categorize it on the higher end of the 600 level difficulty. They're not the normal, they're not on the lower level difficulty, which means they require quite some logic to it. And to a question like this, there is a need to be able to formulate your question or your equation well, or the expression well, and then solve it. That is normally a key thing in algebra questions. So we need to see, how do you formulate your equation well or expression well from this word problem, and be able to get to answer your question correctly. So we have 20 people. Of the 20 people, each of them, they purchased 2 tickets. Some used both tickets, so you can have, let's say, X used both. From just what you've told, let's just put it in expression wise. And then some used only 1 ticket, so you can call Y equals to 1 ticket. They used 1 ticket. And then some used neither, and call them Z, used neither. Neither 1 or 2. Now this means that if you add these 3, you'll get 20. That is X plus Y plus Z equals to 20. Now that is now for the number of people we have in place. So some of them used all their ticket. X used both tickets, Y used only 1 ticket, Z didn't use their tickets. So for the number of tickets to get now, it will be 2X, which are used, tickets used. This case would be 2X plus Y. That is the number of tickets which are used. Yeah. Which means if you're able to find the value of X and Y, then you can be able to get the proportion that was of the tickets which are used. Tickets which are not used, will be Y plus 2Z. That will be the number of tickets which are not used. This is because we had 4 people who didn't use a ticket, so 2 times the number of people. And then why was actually only there is only one ticket, so one ticket was available for no use actually, or not used, and that makes those unused. So if you can get either of these two proportions, either of these two values, y and z, or y and x, then you can comfortably be able to get to determine sufficiency and get an answer to your question. So let's now look at the statements as one by one. The first statement states that of the 20 people, 10 used only one ticket. So you only have 2x plus 10. That's what you have. Then divided by what? How many tickets are looking total? Since two of them had two, that is 40. So since you don't know the value of x, you don't know how many used two of their tickets, or how many used none of their tickets. You can't really tell what the value of x is. If you can tell what the value of x is, then you can know what that is. If you cannot tell, then actually it will be difficult, because it can be 1, it can be 2, it can be 3. The moment this value changes, we'll have multiple proportions, and therefore this is not sufficient. So given our data sufficiency answers approach A, B, C, D, E, if the first statement is not sufficient, you knock off A and D, we left B, C, and E. Now let's go ahead and assess the second statement. Of the 20 people, four used neither of their tickets. That means Z equals to 4. So the Z, the second statement, Z equals to 4. That means the tickets not used are actually what? Are 8, because 2 times Z. So how many tickets are unused? We have Y plus 8 all over 40. So you'll have now 1 minus that to get the proportion of tickets which are used. Yeah. Since we don't know what the value of Y is, minus 8, how many tickets are used? We do not know how many tickets are not used, rather. We can't really get a proportion that can be definite, because from this statement alone, we can't really tell. Y can be any number. It can be 5, can be 6, can be 1, can be 2, can be 3, whichever value. And if the value keeps changing, proportion will keep changing. For that reason, this one also is not sufficient. Therefore, we cross out B and we consider C first. Now let's try combining these two. We have Y equals to 10. And then Z, X, we have 10. Then Z equals to 4. For this reason, we can be able to find what X is. Because now we have Y as 10, and then 8. So 10 plus 8 over 40, then 1 minus that. Give the fraction proportion of those who did not use. So this is 18 over 40. That means the tickets used is equal to 22 over 40. And this gives us a definite answer. Therefore, such as C is the correct answer. So this is both statements together are sufficient, but neither of them alone is sufficient. So as you see, as you go higher in the difficulty, then also difficult, but just being able to apply some logic and reasoning around the questions, you are able to arrive at your answer. And also, these are good goes for all the questions. If you apply some logic under the methodology, which does not really change so much, does not really change at all, actually, just the approach keeps on changing, but this one can help you get answers. So if you apply these ones, you'll be able to address the questions. Just relax and get to know what you need to know logically and reason through the question and define your parameters, and that you should be able to get your answer. So thank you for tuning in, and come again next time and watch more. For now, bye.